Chosen one, tell me something. Why are you still here? Why are you still breathing when the person sitting next to you in church last Sunday isn't? Why did you survive that heart attack at 67 when stronger people didn't make it past 50? Why are you still waking up every morning when you've buried friends, spouses, even children who seem to have so much more life left to live? Think I'm being harsh. Think I'm pushing too hard. Good. Because comfortable Christianity is what's been keeping you asleep while heaven has been screaming your name. Here's a truth that's going to shatter every excuse you've been hiding behind. Your breath today isn't random. It's a signal. Every sunrise you witness, every cup of coffee you sip in that quiet kitchen, every night you lie awake wondering if your life mattered, that's not just existence. That's evidence. Evidence that the Almighty isn't done with you yet. I can see you right now. Maybe you're sitting in that same chair where you've spent countless hours wondering if anyone notices you anymore. Maybe you're in a hospital bed, staring at ceiling tiles, questioning if this is how your story ends. Maybe you're walking through your house at 3 a.m., surrounded by silence so thick you can taste your own loneliness. But what if I told you that every single person who made you feel invisible was simply clearing the stage for what's coming on July 10th, 2025? You're not a leftover. Beloved, you're not damaged goods marked down for clearance. You're a hidden letter sealed by God Himself, waiting for the appointed reader. And that reader, that moment, that divine appointment, it's rushing toward you like a freight train in the darkness. Before we go deeper into what heaven has been hiding from you until this very moment, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message is already resonating with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But right now, if your spirit's already stirring, if something deep inside you is saying, finally, someone sees me, I need you to write in the comments, I'm still here for a reason. Heaven sees it. Angels are taking note. And the enemy who's been trying to convince you that you're finished is about to discover just how wrong he's been. Stay with me for the next hour, because July 10th isn't coming to entertain you. It's coming to confront you. It's coming to reveal why you survived everything that should have destroyed you. The question is, are you ready to find out? Have you been waking up at 3:17 a.m. for no reason your doctor can explain? Do you sit at your own dinner table feeling like a ghost while your family talks around you? Not to you. Are you starting to wonder if God Himself has put you on some cosmic waiting list while everyone else gets their prayers answered? I see you nodding. I feel that recognition stirring in your chest right now. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one, what you've been experiencing isn't just the side effects of aging. It's not just loneliness or insomnia or the quiet desperation that comes with feeling invisible in a world obsessed with youth. What you've been feeling is the rumble before the earthquake, the stillness before the storm, the tension in the spiritual atmosphere that always precedes divine intervention. You've been parked on a spiritual runway for decades, watching jets around you, take off while you wondered if your boarding pass was even real. But what if I told you the tower has been clearing your path this entire time? What if every delay, every disappointment, every moment you felt forgotten was actually heaven coordinating the most important flight of your life? July 10th, 2025. Mark that date. Write it down right now. Because what I'm about to show you will explain the strange pressure you've felt since July began. Something shifted in the spiritual realm 3 weeks ago. Something massive. And if you've been paying attention, if you've been listening with your spirit instead of just your ears, you've felt it. That restlessness that keeps you pacing your living room at midnight. That urgency you can't name. That sense that time itself is accelerating. Do you remember what Jesus said in Matthew 24:32? Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. The signs aren't in the headlines. Beloved, they're in your spirit. They're in the way you've been unable to sleep peacefully. They're in the dreams that wake you up gasping. They're in the way ordinary conversations suddenly feel heavy with eternal weight. For months now, you've been sensing something approaching, something you couldn't put your finger on. You felt like a watchman on the wall, seeing movement in the distance but unable to make out what's coming. Well, chosen one, it's time to adjust your spiritual binoculars. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that what you're feeling is just anxiety, just age, just the normal wear and tear of a life well lived. He's whispered lies that your restlessness is meaningless, that your spiritual sensitivity is just overactive imagination. But that's because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. You're not losing your mind. You're finding your purpose. Think about Noah for a moment. Genesis 6:13 tells us that God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people. For the earth is filled with violence because of them. But here's what most people miss. God didn't just tell Noah what was coming. He told him when to start building. The rain didn't start for 120 years, but Noah felt the storm in his spirit long before the first cloud appeared. You've been feeling your storm, haven't you? Not destruction construction, not judgment appointment, not ending beginning. Every morning you wake up exhausted even though you went to bed early. Every afternoon you feel that unexplainable weight in your chest. Every evening you stand at your window looking out at the world and thinking, something's got to give. That's not despair, dear one. That's discernment. The pressure you're feeling isn't psychological. It's prophetic. I need you to understand something that's going to shake you to your core. The isolation you've experienced your children too busy to call. Your church treating you like furniture. Your own spouse sometimes looking through you like you're not even there. None of that was random. God has been separating you from every voice that would distract you from hearing his voice clearly. Hosea 2:14 says, Therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Your wilderness wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Your loneliness wasn't abandonment. It was appointment. July 10th isn't just another date on your calendar between doctor visits and grocery store trips. It's a divine coordinate, a spiritual GPS location where heaven and earth are about to intersect in ways that will leave the world speechless and the faithful breathless. But here's what terrifies me, and it should terrify you too. Most of God's chosen ones are going to miss it. They're going to sleep right through their greatest moment because they've been conditioned to expect God to show up the way He showed up yesterday, instead of recognizing how He's showing up today. The signs aren't in the sky. Beloved, they're in your sleep patterns. They're in your appetite for things that used to satisfy you but don't anymore. They're in the way your spirit leaps when you hear certain scriptures. They're in the urgency you feel to pray for people you haven't talked to in years. If you felt something brewing in your soul, if you've sensed that the ground beneath your feet is about to shift, comment right now. I've felt it too. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're connected to something the majority of believers can't even perceive. But the question that will determine everything about what happens next is this: will you trust what your spirit is telling you? Or will you let the world convince you it's just your imagination? Because what I'm about to reveal next will either confirm your deepest spiritual suspicions or challenge everything you thought you knew about God's timing. You felt it when I asked why you're still here, didn't you? That sharp pain in your chest, that sudden flood of memories, the faces of people who should still be sitting beside you but aren't, the dreams that died slow, agonizing deaths while you kept breathing. Let me tell you what's been eating at your soul for decades. You think you're being punished. You think those 73 years of heartbreak, those sleepless nights watching your spouse fade away, that diagnosis that changed everything, those children who moved away and forgot to call you, think all of that was God's way of saying you weren't good enough. You've been carrying guilt for surviving when others didn't, shame for still wanting more when you should be grateful just to wake up. Fear that maybe, just maybe, all this pain means you somehow missed the mark. But what if I told you that every single tear you've cried has been collected in heaven's bottles? What if every scar on your heart is actually a medal of honor? What if everything you think disqualified you from God's purposes was actually qualifying you for something so powerful that hell itself has been working overtime to convince you you're finished? Listen to me carefully, beloved. God has a pattern. He doesn't choose the untested. He doesn't anoint the comfortable. He doesn't hand kingdom authority to people who've never walked through fire. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to confront Pharaoh. 80. That's Medicare age, Social Security age, retirement village age. But God looked at those 80 years, 40 years in Pharaoh's palace learning leadership, 40 years in the wilderness learning dependence, and said, now you're ready. Now you understand both power and humility. Now you can handle what I'm about to put in your hands. Abraham was 99 when God renewed his covenant, 99 years old. Sarah was 90 when she conceived Isaac. The Bible doesn't hide their age, it celebrates it. Genesis 17:17 tells us, Abraham fell on his face and laughed when God promised him a son at 100 years old. But that laughter wasn't mockery. It was recognition. Recognition that only God could do what was impossible. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized baby Jesus in the temple. 84 years of waiting, praying, watching. Luke 2:37 says, she never left the temple but worshiped night and day, fasting and praying. While younger people were building careers and chasing dreams, Anna was building spiritual authority, and when the Messiah finally appeared, she was the first to proclaim him to everyone looking for redemption. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain, not give me a rocking chair, not give me assisted living. Give me this mountain. Give me the giants. Give me the impossible." Joshua 14:11 records his words, "I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then." Do you see the pattern? Do you understand what heaven is trying to tell you? Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your scars aren't your shame, they're your credentials. Your pain wasn't your punishment, it was your preparation. Isaiah 46:4 declares with thunderous authority, "Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you." Even to your old age, even to your gray hairs, not despite your age because of it, not in spite of your weathered appearance, because you've been weathered by walking with God through storms that would have destroyed weaker vessels. Here's the moment that's going to shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. Your wrinkles aren't proof of aging. They're proof you outlived everything the devil threw at you. Every line on your face is a victory mark. Every gray hair is a trophy declaring, "I survived another battle." Every limitation you think you have is actually a testimony to the miraculous power of God that kept you standing when others fell. You think those hands that shake when you pour coffee are signs of weakness. Those are hands that have prayed down miracles, comforted the broken, and held together families when everything was falling apart. You think that back that aches when you stand is evidence of decline. That's a spine that bent but never broke under pressure, that would have crushed others. God doesn't retire his warriors. He just refines them in silence. You weren't benched. Beloved, you were being sharpened where no one could see. Every heartbreak honed your compassion. Every loss deepened your faith. Every year of waiting taught you how to trust when you can't see, while the world was dismissing you as past your prime. Heaven was watching you prove that real strength isn't measured in muscle mass. It's measured in the ability to keep trusting God when everything looks impossible. Real beauty isn't about smooth skin. It's about a soul that's been refined by fire and still chooses to believe. You've been in the furnace of preparation for July 10th, 2025. Not the furnace of punishment, the furnace of purification. Every trial was a test. Every struggle was strengthening. Every moment you wanted to quit, but didn't, was building something inside you that the world desperately needs to see. But here's what terrifies the enemy about what's coming. You have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. You're not trying to build a reputation. You're trying to leave a legacy. You're not worried about impressing people. You're focused on impacting eternity. The question that will determine everything is this: will you finally believe that your weathered hands are exactly what God has been waiting to use? Or will you keep hiding them under the blanket of "I'm too old"? Because July 10th isn't coming to comfort you, it's coming to commission you. But here's where it gets dangerous. Chosen one. Here's where most of God's people fail the final exam of faith. Because the test that's coming on July 10th isn't what you think it is. You've been preparing for the wrong battle your entire life. You thought your greatest test would be surviving cancer, but you beat that. You thought it would be outliving your spouse, but you're still standing. You thought it would be watching your children struggle, your finances crumble, your body betray you, but you endured it all. So, what could possibly test someone who's already walked through hell and came out praising God? Let me tell you what your enemy discovered about you after 70, 80, 90 years of trying to destroy you. He learned that you're indestructible. He learned that persecution makes you stronger, that pain makes you wiser, that loss makes you more dependent on God. So he changed tactics. Now he's not trying to break you. He's trying to bury you, not in a grave, but in something far more insidious, something that looks like blessing, but functions like bondage, something that feels like reward, but operates like a prison. Comfort. Listen to me carefully, because this is where most believers your age get deceived. The Israelites in Egypt cried out for 400 years to be delivered from slavery. God heard their cries. He sent Moses. He performed miracles. He opened the Red Sea. He destroyed Pharaoh's army. But do you remember what happened just 3 days into their freedom? Exodus 14:11-12 records their words. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. 3 days. 3 days of freedom. And they wanted to go back to slavery. Why? Because slavery was familiar. Bondage was predictable. Egypt had structure, routine. 3 meals a day. Yes, they were beaten. Yes, they were oppressed. But they knew what to expect. Freedom was scary. Freedom required faith. Freedom meant trusting God for daily bread instead of Pharaoh's guaranteed rations. Your Egypt doesn't look like chains anymore. Dear one, it looks like comfort. It looks like that recliner where you spend 14 hours a day. It looks like those routines that keep you safe but spiritually sedated. It looks like that pension check that pays the bills but never challenges your faith. It looks like retirement from the world and from God's purposes. Comfort is a coffin for the chosen. You want to know why you feel dead inside despite being physically alive. Because you've traded your wilderness calling for Egyptian convenience. You've exchanged the adventure of following God's voice for the predictability of following your prescription schedule. Numbers 11:5 shows us how deep this deception goes. The Israelites said, we remember the fish we ate in Egypt, at no cost also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. They were romanticizing their oppression. They were nostalgic for their own enslavement. What are you nostalgic for? That's keeping you from your next chapter. What familiar misery are you clinging to? Because unfamiliar freedom feels too risky at your age. I'm too old to start something new. I'm too tired to rock the boat. I've earned the right to take it easy. Let someone younger carry the torch. Those aren't wisdom statements. Those are Egyptian comfort talking. That's your inner Israelite saying. Let us go back to what we know, even if it's killing us slowly. But July 10th is coming like thunder across the desert of your complacency. And God is asking you the same question. He asked Israel at the edge of the promised land, will you go in and possess what I've prepared for you? Or will you spend your remaining years wandering in circles, dying one comfortable day at a time? Your greatest test isn't Pharaoh, beloved. Your greatest test is your nostalgia. Your greatest enemy isn't the world, the flesh, or the devil. Your greatest enemy is your own attachment to the familiar prison of this is just how life is at my age. Deuteronomy 30:19 declares, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live. Choose life, not choose comfort, not choose safety, not choose predictability. Choose life. The test that begins July 10th will reveal whether you're truly free or just a slave with better accommodations. It will expose whether you're living or just existing. It will determine whether you'll spend your final years as a testimony to God's faithfulness or a cautionary tale about spiritual retirement. Here's your moment of truth. Here's the question that will separate the overcomers from the overlooked, the finishers from the faders, the Calebs from the complainers. Are you ready to leave Egypt again? Are you ready to trust God with your next chapter? Even if it means leaving behind everything that feels safe and secure. Are you ready to step into the unknown at an age when the world says you should be settling into the known? The wilderness is calling your name. The promised land is within reach, but the journey requires abandoning your Egyptian comfort zone. If you're ready to walk through the test, if you're ready to choose the adventure of faith over the atrophy of comfort, if you're ready to prove that age is just a number when God gives the assignment, type it boldly in the comments, I will not go back. Let hell hear it. Let heaven witness it. Let your own doubts be silenced by it, because what happens next will determine whether you die in the wilderness of what was or live to see the promised land of what's still possible. You felt it stirring, didn't you? That recognition when I mentioned your breath being a signal, that wasn't coincidence. That was confirmation. Because here's what most believers never discover about how heaven operates. God doesn't speak once and walk away. He repeats himself. And when the Almighty starts repeating himself, beloved, you better pay attention. Look at your life. Really look. How many times have you been in the exact same situation, facing the exact same choice, hearing the exact same whisper in your spirit? You thought it was deja vu. You thought it was your mind playing tricks. But what if God has been circling you like Joshua circled Jericho, walking the same path, building the same pressure, waiting for the exact moment when the walls come tumbling down? Jericho didn't fall on the first lap, not the second, not the sixth. It fell on the seventh day, on the seventh lap, when God's people had walked that same circle so many times they could do it with their eyes closed. 7 times around. 7 times of what looked like meaningless repetition. 7 times of people probably whispering, are we just going to keep walking in circles forever? But God wasn't being cute with their timeline. He was being precise. Your life has been timed like a military operation. Every delay that frustrated you, every closed door that confused you, every season that felt like you were walking in circles that wasn't randomness. That was rhythm, divine rhythm, sacred timing that your natural mind couldn't comprehend, but your spirit has been counting like a metronome. How many times have you stood at the edge of your Red Sea? How many times have you felt trapped between the devil behind you and the impossible in front of you? Moses stood there too. Exodus 14:13-14 records his words. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. But here's what most people miss about that moment. God didn't just tell Moses what to do. He told him when to do it. The sea didn't part when Moses first stretched out his hand. It parted when God said, now. Divine timing, military precision, and you, chosen one. You've been standing at your Red Sea for how long now? Months, years, decades. You thought God forgot about you. You thought he moved on to younger, stronger, more qualified vessels. But what if he's been waiting? What if every time you almost gave up, but didn't? Every time you almost walked away, but stayed? Every time you almost stopped believing, but chose faith instead? What if those were your practice laps around Jericho? July 10, 2025. Remember that date. Write it down. Because something's going to happen on July 10, but only 1% will notice. Why? Because it won't come loud. It won't come with fireworks and fanfare. It won't make the evening news or trend on social media. The sign you missed wasn't hidden, it was familiar, but it glowed differently this time. Think about Mary at the tomb on resurrection morning. She'd been there before. She'd walked that same path. She'd cried those same tears. But this time the stone was rolled away. Same garden, same tears, same broken heart. But everything had changed because timing had shifted from human desperation to divine declaration. You've been walking the same spiritual corridors for years, haven't you? The same prayers, the same needs, the same quiet conversations with God in the dark. You thought nothing was happening. But what if everything was happening? What if every repetition was preparation? What if every circle was building pressure in the spiritual realm that's about to explode into your natural circumstances? God's not being random with your age, your health, your situation. He's being surgical. You think you're too old? Moses was 80 when God said, now it's time. You think you missed your moment. Abraham was 99 when promise became reality. You think your season passed? Anna was 84 when she recognized the Messiah that everyone else walked right past. The military operation isn't about your comfort. It's about your commissioning. Every year you survived was another stripe on your uniform. Every battle you fought was advanced training. Every loss you endured was teaching you to depend on supplies from headquarters instead of local resources. But here's what's going to shock you. The repetition is almost over. The circles are about to end. July 10th, 2025 marks the moment when God stops saying wait and starts saying now. When he stops saying not yet and starts saying finally. Your spirit knows it. That's why you can't sleep some nights. That's why certain scriptures hit differently now. That's why you feel like you're standing on the edge of something massive, but can't quite see what it is. Something is shifting in the heavenly realm. The same God who told Moses exactly when to stretch out his hand over the sea is telling you exactly when to step into what he's prepared for you. The same precision that brought down Jericho's walls on the seventh lap, is timing your breakthrough for July 10th. But the question that will determine everything is this: when he says now, will you be ready to move? Because what's coming next will require everything you've learned in all those practice laps around your personal Jericho. But before July 10th can fully reveal itself, there's somewhere we need to go together. Somewhere you haven't been in years, maybe decades. Close your eyes for a moment. Chosen one. I want you to remember that room in your heart. You know the one I'm talking about. That sacred space where your dreams used to live before life told you they were foolish. Before disappointment moved in and convinced you to lock the door. Do you remember that drawer full of journals? The ones where you poured out your soul at 2 a.m. when the house was quiet and your spirit was on fire. Page after page of conversations with God. Dreams so vivid they made you weep. Visions so clear you could taste them. You wrote with such passion your hand cramped. Didn't you? Do you remember the first time you felt fire? When you prayed, not the polite Sunday morning prayers we learned to recite. I'm talking about that holy desperation that made you forget where you were. When heaven felt so close, you could reach through the veil and touch eternity itself. When God's presence was so thick in that room, you thought you might die from the beauty of it. What happened to that person? I'll tell you what happened. Life happened. Betrayal knocked on your door, disguised as a friend. Dreams died slow, agonizing deaths while you watched helplessly. People you trusted with your sacred visions laughed them to pieces. Your own family called you a dreamer, like it was a disease that needed curing. So you made a decision that seemed wise at the time. You walked into that room one last time, looked around at all the evidence of what you thought was foolishness, and you closed the door. Maybe you even turned the lock. Maybe you convinced yourself it was time to grow up. Be practical. Stop chasing fairy tales. But here's what's going to break your heart and heal it at the same time. You closed the door. But God never left that room. While you've been living a smaller version of yourself, surviving instead of thriving, settling for crumbs when you were born for banquets, He's been in there waiting, waiting like a faithful friend who refuses to abandon ship even when everyone else has jumped overboard. Jesus told a parable in Luke 19 about talents buried in the ground. A master gave his servants gifts before going on a journey. 2 multiplied what they received. But one buried his talent in the earth out of fear. When the master returned, what did he find? The gift, unused, unfruitful, but still there, still valuable, still recoverable. Your gifts didn't rot in that locked room. Beloved, they've been marinating. They've been aging like fine wine, getting richer, deeper, more potent with every year you thought they were dead. That prophetic voice you thought was gone, it's been gaining authority through your silence. That healing touch you thought dried up, it's been concentrating power through your pain. That wisdom you thought nobody wanted to hear, it's been maturing through decades of experience nobody else possesses. But here's the urgent truth that should make your soul tremble. July 10th, 2025 is the deadline for recovery. After that date, what's been waiting patiently will move on to someone else. The assignment with your name on it will be reassigned. The destiny you've been avoiding will find another vessel. Are you hearing me? This isn't about missed opportunities anymore. This is about the final opportunity, right now. As I speak these words, there's a key in your spirit that still fits that door. The lock hasn't changed. The hinges aren't broken, but they're rusty from disuse. And it's going to take courage to turn that handle again. Inside that room are journals that need finishing, prayers that need praying, dreams that need birthing, people who need what only you can give them, a generation drowning in despair who needs to see someone who buried their gifts and had the courage to dig them up again. Moses thought his leadership days were over after he killed that Egyptian. 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep, watching younger men lead while he grew older and more forgotten. But God was in the room of his calling the entire time, tending the fire that would eventually split the Red Sea. David spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, wondering if God had forgotten the anointing oil Samuel poured on his head. But the Psalms he wrote in those caves are still healing hearts 3,000 years later. The room of his calling was never empty. Peter denied Jesus 3 times and thought he'd lost his apostolic commission forever. But Jesus found him by the sea and asked the same question 3 times. Do you love me? Not, did you fail me? But, do you love me? Because love is the only key that opens the door to your calling. I can feel some of you fighting me right now. Pastor, you don't understand. I'm 75 years old. I'm 82. I'm 90. That ship has sailed. Those dreams belong to someone younger, stronger, more qualified. Stop right there. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Christ child in the temple. 84? While priests half her age missed the Messiah. Her aged eyes saw glory. The room of her prophetic calling had been active for decades of faithfulness, and it culminated in the greatest revelation of her lifetime. The room is still there. Chosen one. Your name is still on the door. The light is still on. And the God who placed those dreams there in the first place is still waiting for you to come home. But you have to make a choice that requires more courage than you've summoned in years. You have to admit that the practical life you settled for was never supposed to be your real life. You have to confess that you buried something precious out of fear. You have to acknowledge that July 10th isn't just another date. It's your resurrection morning. If something deep in your spirit is stirring right now, if tears are starting to form because you remember what that room felt like, I need you to do something that's going to terrify the enemy and activate heaven. Comment below. I'm going back to the room. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just type it, because your assignment is still on the table. Your calling card is still valid. And the door you thought was locked forever is about to swing wide open. But what you find inside that room will determine whether July 10th becomes your greatest victory or your final regret. But here's where everything you thought you knew about your purpose gets turned upside down. Chosen one, you've been asking the wrong question your entire life. You've been asking, God, why did I have to go through all that pain when you should have been asking, God, what weapon were you forging in the fire of my suffering? Listen to me carefully. Every betrayal that nearly destroyed you wasn't random cruelty. It was target practice. Every financial collapse that brought you to your knees wasn't divine abandonment, it was strength training. Every night, you cried yourself to sleep wondering if anyone cared, wasn't evidence that you were forgotten. It was boot camp for the battle you're about to fight. You think you survived cancer at 73, just so you could spend your remaining years playing it safe. You think you outlived your spouse of 50 years, just so you could fade quietly into a nursing home. You think you made it through the Great Depression, Vietnam, 9/11, and a global pandemic, just so you could spend your golden years watching game shows. Wake up. The God who kept you breathing through all of that didn't preserve you for retirement. He preserved you for deployment. Moses wasn't called to vacation in the wilderness for 40 years. He was being prepared to split seas and topple kingdoms. David wasn't hiding in caves for his health. He was learning to trust God in impossible circumstances so he could lead a nation to victory. And you, dear warrior, you weren't dragged through decades of fire just to become a cautionary tale. You were being forged into a weapon. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night, praying for people just like you. You've been so convinced that your battle scars are marks of shame that you've forgotten they're actually marks of qualification. That depression that almost killed you in your 40s, it didn't break you. It taught you how to recognize when someone else is drowning and throw them a lifeline they'll actually grab. That bankruptcy that stripped away everything you thought defined you, it didn't destroy you. It showed you that your security never came from a bank account anyway. That loneliness that felt like it would swallow you whole after your husband died, it didn't finish you. It connected you to every other widow sitting in silence, wondering if anyone remembers their name. You're not the remnant, beloved. You're the rescue team, right now. As I'm speaking these words, there's a 35-year-old mother 3 miles from your house contemplating suicide because she can't see a way through her darkness. She doesn't need another young pastor with perfect theology. She needs someone who's been in that valley and climbed out. She needs you. There's a teenager in your neighborhood cutting himself because he thinks he's worthless. He doesn't need another counselor with a degree. He needs someone whose scars tell a story of survival. He needs your testimony. There's a middle-aged man losing his family to addiction, convinced he's too far gone for redemption. He doesn't need another recovery program. He needs to see someone who's been broken and put back together by the Master's hands. He needs your proof that comeback is possible. You've been sitting in your living room thinking you're a burden when you're actually the answer to someone else's desperate prayer. But the enemy has been working overtime to convince you otherwise, hasn't he? He's whispered lies that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that your experiences are outdated, that the world has moved on without you. That's because he knows something you've forgotten. He knows that one voice speaking from decades of walking with God can destroy 1,000 voices speaking from mere opinion. He knows that one life lived in authentic faith can awaken an entire generation. He knows that when you finally remember who you are, hell itself trembles. You want to know why you're still here. You want to know why God allowed you to survive everything that should have killed you. Because this generation doesn't need another motivational speaker. They need a miracle with wrinkles. They don't need someone who's read about faith. They need someone who's lived it, tested it, proven it in the furnace of real life. You're not waiting for revival, chosen one. You are the revival. You're not hoping for someone to come and fix what's broken in this world. You're the someone heaven has been preparing for 70, 80, 90 years to step into the chaos and declare, I've seen God move mountains, and he's about to do it again. Every morning you wake up, is God loading another round into the spiritual weapon he's made of your life? Every prayer you whisper carries authority forged in decades of seeing him faithful. Every word of encouragement you speak carries power that can resurrect dead dreams. But July 10th is your commission date. It's the moment heaven stops training you and starts deploying you. It's the day you stop asking why you had to go through so much and start understanding that everything you endured was preparing you for everything that's coming. The question that will determine whether you spend your remaining years as a spectator or a warrior is this: are you ready to stop surviving and start delivering? If you're ready to be the miracle someone else needs, if you're ready to let God use every scar as a weapon for his kingdom, if you're ready to stop hiding your light under the bushel of age and start setting the world on fire with decades of proven faith, type in the comments right now, send me, Lord, because what I'm about to show you next will reveal exactly who you're being sent to save. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one, I need you to stop thinking about July 10th like it's just another date circled on your kitchen calendar between your doctor's appointment and your grandson's birthday party. July 10th, 2025 isn't a holiday. It's a threshold. You know what a threshold is. It's that invisible line between where you've been and where you're going. It's the space between your old life and your new assignment. It's the moment when heaven stops whispering and starts commanding. But here's what breaks my heart, and I need you to feel the weight of this. Most of you are sitting there right now thinking this message is beautiful, inspiring, maybe even true, but not for you. You're thinking, Pastor, you don't understand. I'm 73 years old. I take 6 medications. My children barely call. My back hurts when I get out of bed. God's not calling me to cross any thresholds. He's calling me to rest. That's exactly what the enemy wants you to believe. Do you know what Moses was doing at 79? Tending sheep in the middle of nowhere? Convinced his life was over. Do you know what he was doing at 80 standing before Pharaoh? Demanding freedom for 2 million slaves, 1 year. One encounter with the burning bush. One moment when God said, now. Abraham was 99 when God said, I'm giving you a son. Not 29, not 39, 99 years old. Sarah laughed because she thought it was too late. But Genesis 21:2 declares, Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. At the very time, not early, not late, at the very time. Anna the prophetess was 84 years old, spending every single day in the temple, praying and fasting. People probably whispered, poor Anna, still hanging around the temple after all these years. But when baby Jesus walked through those doors, she was the first to recognize the Messiah. Her age wasn't her disqualification, it was her qualification. But you want to tell me that July 10th, 2025 has nothing to do with you because you're too old. Here's what you need to understand about thresholds. They don't care about your age. They don't check your medical records. They don't ask for your birth certificate. Thresholds only ask one question. Are you ready to stop surviving and start stepping into what you were born for? Because surviving is what you've been doing for decades, isn't it? Surviving the divorce, surviving the financial crashes, surviving the deaths of people you thought you'd grow old with, surviving the disappointments, the rejections, the nights when you wondered if anyone would miss you if you were gone. But July 10th isn't asking you to survive anymore. July 10th is demanding that you cross over, crossing over from invisible to influential, from forgotten to appointed, from retired to re-fired, from the end of your story to the beginning of your greatest chapter. Do you remember what happened at the Jordan River? Joshua 3:15 tells us that when the priests carrying the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water stopped flowing. But notice this, the water didn't part until their feet hit the riverbank. God was waiting for them to step into the threshold. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these truths deep in your heart like precious stones that will never lose their luster. Remember this: July 10th, 2025 isn't just another date circled on your calendar. It's your divine appointment with destiny. Every breath you've taken, every tear you've shed, every battle you've fought has been preparing you for this moment when heaven stops whispering and starts shouting your name. Remember that your gray hair isn't a mark of decline. It's a crown of wisdom that qualifies you for assignments the young can't handle. Your scars aren't signs of defeat. They're proof that you've walked through fire and emerged as gold. Your age isn't your limitation. It's your greatest asset in a world drowning in inexperience. And most importantly, remember that you survived everything that tried to destroy you because God has been saving you for something greater than you ever imagined. But here's what I need you to know. With absolute certainty, you are never walking this path alone. Even when the silence feels deafening, even when the loneliness presses against your chest like a weight, the God who parted the Red Sea is still parting ways for you. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is living and moving in your everyday moments. And you have something precious that many people in this world don't have. You have a community right here. Thousands of believers who understand your journey because they're walking it too. People who will pray for you at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. Who will celebrate your victories and stand with you in your valleys. You're not just watching a video, you're part of a family that spans every state, every background, but shares one common thread. We've all been chosen for such a time as this. But let me ask you something that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. If God has brought you this far, through every storm you thought would drown you, through every valley you thought would swallow you, through every battle you thought would defeat you, what makes you think He's going to stop fighting for you now? When July 10th arrives and your test begins, will you remember who you are? Will you stand in the authority of your calling? Or will you shrink back into the shadows of doubt now? Let me pray over you, not as a distant voice through a screen, but as someone who believes in the calling on your life and the power of God to fulfill it through you. Father God, I place my hands on the shoulders of every precious soul who has journeyed with us today. Lord, you see the ones who are tired, breathe strength into their weary bones. You see the ones who are hurting, pour your healing oil over every broken place. You see the ones who feel forgotten, remind them that their names are engraved on the palms of your hands. God, I pray for supernatural peace to flood their hearts right now. Where there has been anxiety, release your perfect peace that surpasses all understanding. Where there has been confusion, bring divine clarity. Where there has been loneliness, surround them with your presence so real they can feel you sitting right beside them. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide in ways that defy logic. Heal what doctors can't touch. Restore what the enemy has stolen. And let them know that their latter days will be greater than their former days. Father, as July 10th approaches, prepare their hearts for what you're about to reveal. Give them courage to face their greatest test, wisdom to recognize your voice above all others, and strength to walk in their destiny without apology. Bless their families, Lord. Let their children and grandchildren witness the power of a life surrendered to you. Bless their health, keep their minds sharp, and their bodies strong enough to fulfill their assignment. Bless their finances, provide everything they need to walk in their calling. And God, when they lay their heads on their pillows tonight, let them sleep in perfect peace, knowing that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond understanding, and called to purposes that will echo through eternity. In Jesus' mighty name, I speak life, hope, purpose, and power over every person hearing these words. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me what's stirring in your spirit right now. What is God speaking to your heart about July 10th? What dreams is He awakening that you thought were dead? Share your prayer requests. This community will surround you with love and intercession. And if this message has touched your soul, if you felt God speaking directly to you through these words, please share this video with someone else who needs to hear it. You might be the vessel God uses to awaken another chosen one who's been waiting for this exact message. Your testimony could be the lifeline someone else needs to hold on just one more day. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically designed to remind God's chosen ones that their greatest days aren't behind them. They're just beginning. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for listening with your spirit, and for saying yes to God's call on your life. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your heart. You're ready for what God has prepared. Remember, Chosen One July 10th is coming. Your test is approaching. But the God who has brought you this far will never leave you nor forsake you. Your greatest chapter doesn't end with this video. It starts now. Go in peace, walk in power, and live in the fullness of who God created you to be. Until we meet again, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you and may you rest in the absolute certainty that you are loved. You are chosen, and your story is far from over. God bless you mightily. Beloved, the world is waiting for what only you can give.